Welcome. Have you ever felt a grief you couldn't name? One that didn't scream or sob, but simply waited? Waited in the quiet corners of your chest, in rooms you haven't entered for years? This story is for the part of you that learned to be strong too soon, that closed the door, that kept walking. So take a breath, and if you're ready to start remembering what you've silenced, go ahead and subscribe now, because this channel is a place where even your quietest feelings are finally allowed to speak. Delayed grief, reconnecting with the self we silenced. A hypnotic story of repressed grief and the gentle art of remembering. Her name is Liora, and all her life she had been good at closing doors. Not the obvious kind, not the ones that creaked on old hinges or separated bedrooms from kitchens. No, she closed the other kind, the quiet doors, the ones in the heart, the ones in the mind. And there was one door that had been closed the longest. It lived at the end of the hallway in her childhood home, painted the same colors as the walls, almost invisible to a stranger's eye. Even the floorboards in the front of it refused to creak, as if they too had agreed to keep its silence. No one spoke of it, not her mother, not her siblings, not even Liora herself, especially Liora. The house had long since become hers. After her parents had passed, she returned, not out of joy, but out of duty. A house full of memory and muted sounds, and every day she passed that door. She dusted its frame, she watered the plant beside it. She even repainted it once, but never opened it. She didn't need to, because some part of her already knew what lived inside. Grief. Not the loud kind, not the sobs that echoed through hospitals or cries at funerals. No. This was the quiet kind, the kind that sits in the lungs, that curls behind the ribs, the kind that waits. She remembered the day the room had been sealed, or rather, she remembered what happened before it. The way her father's laugh had disappeared first. The way her mother's eyes looked out the window for longer and longer stretches of time. The way her own voice had grown careful. And then, one night, the room was closed. The next morning, no one spoke of it, and from then on, that silence became the wallpaper of Liora's life. But one autumn evening, when the sky was a color too full to name, and the wind carried something older, she found herself standing in front of the door again. A hand hovered over the handle, still, silent, not pushing, not forcing, just listening. And the strangest thing happened. The door sighed, as if relieved, as if too had grown tired of being ignored. She opened it, slowly, carefully, with breath that held like a candle in a storm. And inside, there was dust, yes, and cobwebs, but also, there were toys she hadn't seen in decades, a quilt her mother had started, a chair that had always rocked just slightly too much, photos and frames that had been turned around, letters she never wrote, one addressed to her. And there, on the far side of the room, was a single box, unmarked, untouched. And as she lifted it, she felt something come loose inside her chest. A name, a memory, a moment she had buried so deep she thought it had dissolved. Her brother. He had passed young, too young, the kind of loss that tilts the world and steals the air. She had been 8, old enough to feel it, too young to name it. So she had learned to be quiet, helpful, smiling. And somewhere along the way, she had mistaken that survival for healing. But now, sitting on the floor of the room she never opened, Liora let the grief rise. Not like a flood, but like a tide. Soft, persistent, natural. Tears that didn't ask for permission, shivers that didn't need explanation. And as she cried, the room seemed to breathe with her. Walls once still, now expanding. The space around her became a kind of womb, holding her, cradling her, witnessing. And for the first time, she didn't try to fix it, didn't try to be okay. She just let herself feel. She stayed in the room for hours, not because she had to, but because it felt like returning to a part of herself that had waited so patiently to be seen. The box stayed open, the door too. And in the days that followed, she noticed something. The house felt warmer, the air easier to breathe. Even her laugh, the one she hadn't realized she had lost, began to return. Not in grand bursts, but in small, sacred waves. Grief, she learned, is not a thing to overcome. It's a thing to tend to sit with, to honor. Like a garden in winter, bare, yes, but not dead, just waiting. And perhaps we are not broken, but simply full of unopened rooms. And maybe healing is not about knocking down walls, but gently turning the handle when we're ready and letting what's inside finally speak. Hypnotic Induction. Before we begin, find a place where your body can rest, as if it were being held by the earth itself. Supported, safe, unrushed. Let your eyes soften or close completely, as if they are gently folding into sleep, even if you're still awake. And now, let your breath begin to slow. Not because you're trying, but because your body already knows how. Inhale, gently, and exhale completely. And again, in and out. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to be. You can let the outside world fade just a little further with each breath. Because this story is not about escape, it's about return. Imagine now that inside you there is a long, quiet hallway. It may look old or new or something in between. You don't have to see it clearly. You can just feel it, sense it, The way you sometimes know you're being watched without turning your head. This hallway belongs to you. It always has. And along the walls, there are doors. Some you've opened many times. Some still carry the warmth of your daily thoughts. But there is one, at the end, that you've passed by often. Kindly, unconsciously, carefully. You never meant to ignore it. You just weren't ready. Until now. And so you walk, each step slower than the last. Not because of fear, but because something sacred deserves to be approached slowly. And as you reach the door, notice how it looks. The handle, the way the light falls against it. And notice too how your body feels. Noticing is enough. If the door wishes to remain closed, you may simply sit beside it and rest. And if the door gently begins to open, then you may enter with the same softness that you once needed but didn't receive. Whatever lives inside this room doesn't need fixing, doesn't need solving. It only needs space. And you have arrived with space to give. So now, you may listen, you may feel, you may begin when you are ready. So here are the key meanings of the story. Number 1, repressed grief never disappears. It waits. The closed room symbolizes the grief we avoid, not because we don't care, but because we're trying to survive. Unfelt grief doesn't vanish. It becomes a part of the unconscious landscape, quietly shaping how we feel, connect, and cope, until we're ready to open the door. Psychology link. Repressed emotions often manifest somatically: fatigue, numbness, anxiety, until they're consciously acknowledged. Number 2, avoidance isn't weakness. It's wisdom misunderstood. Liora doesn't avoid the room because she's weak. She avoided it because, as a child, she lacked the tools to process loss. Her avoidance was adaptive, even productive. The story reframes avoidance as an unconscious form of self-preservation that eventually evolves into readiness. Healing insight? Avoidance can be honored as a coping mechanism that once kept us safe, but need not remain forever. Number 3, healing begins with allowing, not forcing. The moment Liora finally enters the room isn't dramatic. It's quiet, respectful, intuitive. The door opens not because she pushes it, but because she listens. This reflects how deep healing often begins not with urgency, but with stillness and permission. Therapeutic metaphor? The nervous system unwinds more fully when approached gently with internal consent. Number 4, grief isn't just sadness, it's remembering. Inside the room are not just sorrows, but photos, memories, sounds, softness. By entering it, Liora reconnects not just with pain, but with love, frozen in time. Grief is not the loss of love. It's the continuation of it, waiting to be felt. Spiritual insight? What we grieve most deeply is what we've loved most completely. Number 5. Emotional rooms don't open until we're ready. The story reassures the listener that healing doesn't have a deadline. The door will wait. The grief will wait. And when we are truly ready, often led by intuition rather than logic, the psyche invites us in. Empowerment message? You don't have to force your healing. When the body says yes, the path opens. And number 6, feeling isn't the breakdown, it's the breakthrough. When Liora finally weeps, the house begins to warm. Her voice returns. Life softens. This symbolizes how expressing grief doesn't destroy us. It liberates us. Feeling deeply is not collapse, it's release. Core message? Grief is a form of transformation, not disorder. And maybe tonight, some part of you will stand quietly at the door of a memory you've been too tender to touch. Not to rush it open, but to just be near it, to let it know you haven't forgotten. Because healing doesn't shout, it whispers, it waits, and when you're ready, it walks with you. If this story stirred something in you, remember, you don't have to navigate it alone. You can email me at rhondashypnoticstories@gmail.com, and that's a Rhonda without an H, to request your own personalized healing story. And if you haven't already, subscribe now, because here, every story is a gentle step back to yourself. Until next time, be well.